Hello, my name is Janelle Ott, and I teach oboe and bassoon at Angelo State University, Abilene Christian University, and McMurray University. I am here today to show you how to learn the ATSSB All Region Etudes for year, I believe it's year C. These are the etudes that we're using in 2023 going into 2024. So we'll get started with the very first one, which is number 4 of the Weissenborn etudes. There are a few things we need to go over before I play this for you. So the very first thing that you need to know in order to play this piece is that it is not all in bass clef. A large portion of the piece is in tenor clef. It looks like 2 backward C's put together. And the first time that you see the tenor clef symbol would be in the second line towards the end. It's the second half of measure 14 where you first see this symbol. So tenor clef is a clef just like bass clef. I have made another video explaining how to learn tenor clef and how to work on it. I'll link that in the notes for this video, but what you need to know right now is that when you're reading tenor clef, the note that is normally F in the staff is now going to be your C that's normally written above the staff. Please watch my other video to learn how to read tenor clef, but do not try to play this entire piece in bass clef because it is not all in bass clef. The next thing that you need to be sure you remember is that the key signature has an F sharp in the key. There is no B flat and there is no E flat. Unless it is written and scanning the piece, it's not. So no B flats, no E flats, F sharps every time you have an F. The third thing that we need to talk about. So the pacing of this etude is a little unusual. It's supposed to be very lyrical. And there are a lot of notated pauses in the piece. So we have 2 signs we need to talk about. The first is a caesura. That's when we have 2 diagonal lines. The first place I see a caesura is in measure 9, the first measure of the second line. The caesura means you're going to pause before you continue. The third thing you need to be aware of is the fermata, which I think you've probably seen these before. We have a few fermatas in this piece. The idea behind the fermata is that you hold out the value of whichever note or rest is written directly below the fermata. In the case of this piece, sometimes the fermata is written over a note and sometimes it's written over a rest. How much longer do you hold the fermata? Well, it really depends on context, and the ultimate answer is that it's up to you how long you wait. I would advise you not to wait much more than double the length of whatever note or rest you're on top of. So if you've got a fermata over a quarter note, maybe hold it for 2 beats instead of 1 beat. Probably don't hold it for 4 beats or 8 beats or 27 beats. That might be going a little too far. This piece is intended to be performed with a little bit of freedom in the tempo. I'm going to play it for you with the metronome on, taking almost no freedom. And I recommend that as you work on this piece, you check in with your metronome regularly, because you will start to play the piece and you'll take a little bit of liberty with certain notes. And if you don't check back in with the metronome over time, the amount of extra time you take increases. You don't notice it because it happens slowly. And it sounds like you're taking the same amount of time you always do, when in fact you're taking more and more and more, and eventually it's just too much for the piece. The other thing you need to consider with this piece in particular is descending slurs. Descending slurs are any time that you go from a higher note to a lower note and there's no tonguing involved. Descending slurs are difficult to play on bassoon, much harder than an ascending slur that goes from a lower note to a higher note. There are many different philosophies about how to play a descending slur well. It helps to have a good reed. So if you're playing a reed that's left over from last year, that might not work out for you very well. There are lots of places where you can get a good reed. I like the Brundage reeds. I also recommend my friend Sarah Boyd, who has a company called thereedlab.com. If you've got a store-bought reed, I recommend you purchase a medium or a medium hard rather than a medium soft. In my experience, they just work better. The other way, what you need to be able to do to play a descending slur is you need to be able to make the reed suddenly vibrate more slowly. And reeds don't like to do that. So we kind of have to do something to trick the reed. What you need to do is suddenly relax your mouth muscles just a little bit while keeping enough air going that the note does not stop speaking. For me, what I'll usually do is think about pushing my stomach out for the low notes, which it feels very strange, but it's forcing you to relax. Check in with your tuner frequently, especially because of the number of G's that are in this piece. G is a note that tends to be really sharp for us. So if you are currently using the fingering that is half hole 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, I recommend you add your resonance key. That's this one right here, or that one. For G, you can use either one. Most people use this one. And I also recommend that you have the whisper key. Beyond that, flicking is going to be very important. I also have a video about that, but briefly, when you are playing A at the top of the staff, you should also be using this key. When you're playing B flat, B natural, or C above the staff, you should be pushing down this key. And when you're playing D above the staff, this key, if you have it, if you do not have this top key, then no thumb for your high D. In all cases, you should accompany the use of these thumb keys with plenty of embouchure support and plenty of air. But don't try to squeeze the note out. Just make sure there's enough air for it to react. If you have never heard of using these thumb keys before when you're playing these high notes, I'm not surprised because a lot of fingering charts don't include those keys for these notes. But as a professional bassoonist and a bassoon teacher, I could tell you it's going to make the difference between those notes probably coming out and those notes definitely coming out. So if you're not used to using this technique, start now. Now is the time. Please watch my video about venting and flicking. I'll include that in the notes. So the suggested tempo for this etude is between 66 and 76. I prefer it on the slower side. I think it actually sounds better slower. And I'm also going to tell you, if you're having trouble playing it at 66, play it slower. It will sound great at almost any tempo. That's one of the magical things about this etude. So I'm going to perform it for you with the metronome on so you can hear how the notes line up. And I'm going to put it at 66. One final note, it's likely that you're being encouraged to perform this etude with vibrato. I have made videos about vibrato, and those will be linked in the description for this video as well. The short version of playing with vibrato. What you need to know, the most important thing, is that on bassoon we produce vibrato by pulsing our airstream. This will also affect your pitch unless you are very careful. So if you add vibrato, make sure that your tuner is on, ideally connected to your vocal or your bell, or if you're practicing alone, it's fine to just have it on your stand. I recommend any tuner, chromatic tuner, it needs to be a chromatic tuner made by Korg. This is one that I like to use. If you are more of a phone app person, there is an app that I recommend called Tonal Energy. I believe it costs $2.99, and that's a pretty reliable tuner. We do need to be more careful on bassoon because not all tuners can understand bassoon pitch, and they sometimes tell us the wrong notes. And if they do that, if you're ever playing like a C and it's telling you you're playing a G, you cannot listen to that tuner about that note. So Korg or Tonal Energy are the ones that I recommend most often. Please see my video about playing with vibrato. Thank you very much, and good luck.